G'day guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 159, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at the Tigers and the injury crisis that's currently going on with them. The Pies, of course, Pendles, game-breaking matchup this week, and if Collingwood have actually thrown away their season due to trying to get Pendles his game at the MCG, a preview to the new round, a recap of AFL Fantasy from the weekend, and much, much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it.
Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs.
He looks at his options, and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do just this!
But this guy has flog written all over him.
From attack down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was.
So guys, as always, my brother is here with us, recording a day earlier this week. So, you got the day off of work, but big round of footy that we just had. Not as bad or umpiring as we have seen, but there were a couple of poor ones. I think the West Coast game was pretty poor. I mean, umpiring's not getting any better, but I still think we're building up to a pretty good season so far.
No, yeah, and it's probably the first week that there was a few upsets, really.
Yeah, there's been a few. We've seen a
most
couple of like small ones, but we saw some really big. I think some pretty decent upsets throughout the weekend.
Yeah, so it was nice to see some, lesser likes win, and it wasn't just as cruisy as it's been most of the season. So yeah, well, and umpiring, can't wait for the AFL to come out and say it's been the best it's ever been. But
I mean, they've already done it once this season. I don't think they need to say it again.
Yeah,
they'll just bury their heads in the sand for for about another 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll see some. There'll be a really bad call, and then they'll be like, oh, well, there was a mistake. They won't apologise. They'll just say there's a mistake, mate. Let's just quickly recap the round. That was, of course, round 10, the first of the two Sir Doug Nicholls rounds, of course. We had Geelong up against the Lions, and, I mean, Sean Manor just ran the show, didn't he? I mean, can you believe this guy was stuck in the VFL for years?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
5 goals, 30 touches. I mean, you can't have a better performance than that.
No.
Sitting in the VFL. Do we start to worry about the Lions, or are we still?
It's a matter of when do you, to be honest. I think everyone's like, well, they're doing it now. But you have to, just beat them in the finals. They just gradually they're just doing it what they're doing.
I just don't know if we. I still believe that if they're there when the finals come around, they're still going to be a team that you don't want to play against.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was but the first time I kind of was concerned, was like, what are they going to be able to turn this around? But we've been proven wrong last year and probably the year before, so they can still do it.
I think they're still going to be right up there at the end of the season. And I think if you come up against them, I think you probably go in as the underdog. Right? I still think Brisbane are a team to watch, but that was probably one of their worst performances of the year.
Especially when Geelong coming off a 5-day break, and the things that and Brisbane coming off the week before that when they win, I think the previous week.
Yeah, I think they won the previous week, but yeah, I just think the last couple of they beat Carlton, but only just.
Yeah.
So, they're coming off some games where they're not playing at their best still. Like they beat Essendon by 60 odd points. So the last 4 weeks, and then the game before that, they beat the Crows by 52, which is probably their best performance of the year.
I think
the game before that was the Melbourne one when they lost.
Yeah, you got to think that everyone's still coming up to the bye rounds and stuff like that. So
I think the first 2 weeks after the bye for Brisbane, which we can't be too far away. I'm guessing it's probably around 13 or 14. Brisbane.
I think they got 15, to be honest.
They got one of the last ones there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think
they got around 15, so they're going to have to bank some wins up before then, which I mean they probably will.
But they have shown in the last 2 years that it doesn't matter if they finish in the bottom half of the 4, they can still run it. So
I mean, if they come back, if by round 18, I think by round 18 we'll know if Brisbane are going to really be ready to go by finals. That's when they usually hit their straps, I would say. That's usually when you start to find out who's a premiership contender and who's dropped off the pace. Because we've seen teams, hit the point, hit their bye, and then they, fall back down. Or, even though the Swans, 2024 when they still finished top of the ladder, after their bye, they had a couple of injuries and then they fell off. And when they made the grand final, but they needed Isaac Heaney heroics in that qualifying final. And in that prelim final, they needed Collingwood to, not be at their best until the final quarter. Was it Collingwood? Beating the I'm pretty sure it was them in the prelim. Or was it that year before that? Year before that would have been Port Adelaide. We played Port Adelaide in that prelim.
Yeah,
I can't even remember it. We beat Port Adelaide. They weren't really much of it. I mean, 36 points probably doesn't read the story. Sydney dominated most of the night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I still think Brisbane will be right up there. I don't think there's too many concerns. Then we got to the Swans up against the Pies. Collingwood, I mean, they thought they had it done halfway through the second quarter, but you just can't keep the Swans down. Just, right up there again.
Yeah.
Did you see or hear any of this game when you were at work?
No, because I was watching the Port game. But, I think... Especially losing their Ruckman, Oscar Steen, and Brodie Grundy just absolutely fucking dominating.
Yeah, had a bit of a down week the week prior against the Roos, and I thought there was potentially a chance that he gets rested. Thank God he wasn't. I don't think Peter Adams is getting that performance against the Pies.
Yeah. It's amazing to think that this guy was at Melbourne for a couple of years.
He was there for a year.
He was playing in the VFL, and it's like...
This guy's never this. You don't put a Rolls Royce in the VFL.
No,
you don't put him in the Downwood area of bloody Port Adelaide. The Darrow area. You don't ride the Rolls Royce in Port Adelaide. Let's just put it that way. Even that's a bit of a shot to you. On the Pies though, I honestly think they brought the Swans down to their level, and they got them under 100 points. This is like the second time this year, but Collingwood had chances to win this game. 10 goals, 15. Like, Sydney didn't kick much better. They kicked 11 goals, 15. So you could look at that and say, well, Sydney probably should have, they could have kicked away and won this one. 71 inside 50s to the Sydney Swans. You're not going to win many games if you let 70 inside 50s go through. Considering the corridor game was completely shut down for them. They couldn't get it in there. And you look at the statistics of this game. The Swans have been known as the handball happy team all year. Collingwood had more handballs than them. So Sydney found a different way to win, which is something that I was most impressed by. Yes, it was a good win. And, it was not against a big opposition. But my takeaway from it is the Swans won with 33 points down, were able to fight their way back when they didn't have it their own way. My major concern with Sydney right now is a bit of their tall forwards. Joel Amati didn't have a great performance, didn't kick straight. I think he kicked 2 behinds in the end. Didn't kick a goal from my understanding. Just quickly scrolling through, kicked 1 behind, had 5 touches. So that was not great. Logan McDonald had a pretty decent performance. He still kicked 2 goals and had some big moments. Charlie Curnow, for mine, is starting to get a bit on my nerves, I would say. He kicked 1 goal, which was a gimme. He missed he missed a couple of opportunities. And it's going to be something that the Swans, look, in finals, you don't really have to rely on key forwards. They're supposed to be there to provide a contest. You don't really see... There's not many games, especially this era, where you see a key forward take over a grand final.
No, you don't, yeah.
You do need your key forwards around, and if... The problem I find with Charlie at the moment is he's not leading up at the kicker, which is something that, you say when you see these Carlton days, you're like, oh, they can't kick it to him, they can't hit their kicks. Well, I mean, now you've got guys who can hit you lace out. Something that Joel Amati that I love him doing, he leads up at the kicker. And Logan McDonald leads up at the kicker. You need to lead up and provide an option. He's always constantly rustling and calling it from behind, and I guess I didn't, he wins the Coleman and you see those big things, but you lead up at the kicker, you get the ball.
Yeah.
And it's something that he needs to do and compete more. Yes, he had that 7-goal game, what was it, about a month ago now. But, yeah, it's something that is probably my most concerning thing about the Swans right now. Other than that, I'm super happy with how they're going. And, top of the table, you don't want to be on top of the table now and not at the end of the season. But they're doing everything right. So I'm happy. Collingwood, we'll get to them a bit later. About some other things that I have some thoughts about. Gold Coast v Port Adelaide up in Darwin. Gold Coast make it 10 in a row.
Yeah, Port were able to stay with them until about 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, and then they just piled on 5 or 6 goals in a row. Gold Coast, and that was it. Yeah. So between the halfway through the second term and nearly midway through the third, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 goals kicked. So they took it away from Port Adelaide, and even though in the final quarter the Gold Coast just stopped, and if Port Adelaide, there was a couple of opportunities in that last quarter where they missed some big opportunities. Jason Horne-Francis missed one for about 25 metres out straight in front, could have rolled it through, kicked the point. Joe Richards missed a set shot straight in front. So there were opportunities for the power, but that's what the Gold Coast need to do better. They can't. Yeah. They're still not as mature as what I would like. And, and this is when they normally go down. They go home and they're coming back into the different conditions and stuff like that, they actually go down.
I think
that's when they hit their slump. And I don't think they have a very good record coming out of this Darwin trip. I think, and they've got North Melbourne this week, so you never know how that's going to go.
Well, they need a response after their performance last week. Port Adelaide, they could easily be in the wildcard spots with how they've been going. They've lost 4 games by under a goal.
Yeah.
So you turn that around, you add 4 wins to their tally, and they would be 3 wins? There'd be 7 wins right now. Be on 28 points, be inside the top 6. They lose those games, they're sitting currently in 14th spot, equal with the West Coast Eagles on wins.
And I know.
They could have been another win in front if they beat the West Coast.
Yeah, and you look at fucking West Coast percentage, and you think, fuck, we're out.
Yeah, 64, and the only team they beat on percentage is the Tigers, who, injury crisis galore. So how do you think Port Adelaide are going? Like on their, Josh Carr's taken over now. Technically, error's done.
I think there's a couple good signs. It's just, there's some of your A graders in Butters and Georgiades who have rumours that they're not going to sign and they're going to leave and stuff like that. So, and obviously Port have a lot of picks coming through, and father sons and academy players. So, it's going to be interesting what happens. If we lose a Butters, which looks likely, and a Georgiades, from what we're hearing, is that he's not going to re-sign. So, what does that mean for Port Adelaide when basically if it's not both of them and Horne-Francis at the moment playing at their best, Port Adelaide don't really have a chance.
Well, Jason Horne-Francis hasn't... obviously it's AFL fantasy, so that's not the end of the world, but fucking hell, he's dropped off a cliff since I picked him up.
He played a bit more forward this week.
Yeah, what are you doing? He's your second best midfielder.
Yeah, I think that...
in the middle.
Yeah, it's... Without, Bergman, Rosie, and some, other players, they're slowly coming back. But, if it's not your A graders, Port Adelaide don't have a lot of depth.
I don't think they threaten many teams without Butters having a three Brownlow vote.
Oh, well, he had
game and Georgiades having 10 scoring shots.
Well, he had Butters in the last quarter had 14 disposals and nearly got a chance.
I'm saying if they kicked, I think it was Joe Rich's set shot. If he kicked that goal straight in front, 30 metres out, he kicks that. I think the margin drops down to 7 points. I'm pretty sure. So that could have been a little bit closer. Gold Coast, I don't really trust them at the moment. This week against the Roos, it's a huge danger game.
Oh, yeah. At Marvel, under the roof, coming from Darwin's 2-week trip.
I think it's going to be tough for them. Then we get to the Crows up against North Melbourne. This is a huge danger game for Adelaide. A lot of players out. Second quarter ripped the game apart.
Oh, it's just pathetic. Pathetic. 10 goals for to 2 points. To a team that has been classified as they're out of this rebuild. They're going to show something. As I've been saying to you late last week, this is their chance to win their first ever game at Adelaide Oval. Because they actually have the players, and the Crows have got hit by injury this week. And they just absolutely shit the bed, and they just proved to me that they're not even close to a wildcard spot, to me.
So they conceded 14 goals in a row. 10 of them were in the second quarter. I was shocked when I saw it. I didn't see a lot of this game. I saw parts of it. I saw it, the first quarter, they kicked the first two goals of it. And I was like, oh, here we go. There's a chance here. And then at quarter time, it was about even Steven, 4-point lead to the Crows. I'm like, this is getting out of hand. Didn't see much of the second quarter. Look at my phone. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Is this a glitch on my phone? North Melbourne just shit the bed, like you said. We'll talk about North Melbourne a bit later as well, but it's just, when is it going to change? Is it going to change, or are we just going to sit here for 3 years' time and they're going to be, lingering around? At the moment, they are currently in 12th spot. They've got a decent percentage, and you got to think they would have been a lot better before that performance last week. They were sitting. I'm pretty sure they sat in a top 6 spot, in a wild card spot. Yeah, I just don't know where North Melbourne are. How about on the Crows? Do you change your opinion on them? They're one of the more disappointing teams so far this year. They win by their best performance of the year.
To be honest, it gives you a bit of a light. To be honest, maybe this is the turning point they needed. They needed an easy win. They were playing two forward, two with Toby Murray and Fogarty,
who played well.
Yeah,
he
so
kicked 2 goals, had
So people are saying, it's like, do they go back to the three-pronged tall forward line with, Walker, Thilthorpe and Fogarty? Well, they smashed a team like North Melbourne. They showed that they can put goals on the board. Maybe just bring Thilthorpe back and see what the forward line looks like.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what happens next week. But they do play in Tassie. I think that it's going to be... I would be a little bit surprised if Thilthorpe comes back to a cold Tassie night with a back injury.
Yeah, I think and they do have the bye the week after. So, give him 3 weeks off and just bring him in after the bye. So I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. Maybe bring Walker back. I think he was close to playing this week.
Yeah.
So maybe bring him back for just a bit more experience up forward.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think...
Also down in Tassie, you may even just want to leave him out. Because, it's going to be cold, let's be real. So there's no point really bringing back him either. But
yeah.
Then we move to the D's up against Hawthorn. Two big stories here. First of all, let's talk the positives. Demons are hot. They're a good team to watch.
It's amazing how good they're playing, and you think they get rid of 2 players in the off season for off big contracts and to take them off the books, and bloody hell, I don't think anybody saw this coming after 10 rounds. Well, after 9 rounds.
They're currently sitting in 5th spot. We've got to remember this team also lost... who do they lose to again? They lost to Essendon. They don't lose to Essendon. They're currently sitting in 3rd spot on the ladder, behind Fremantle and Swan.
Yeah.
It's
amazing
how they've turned this around in 6 months. I think Mac Gawn's still playing good footy, but he's not the be all and end all anymore. And something that I think I was really impressed with the last from the Hawthorn game, Cosy Pickett didn't have a massive performance.
No, he hasn't had a big game the last 2 weeks. He's actually,
but they're winning games of footy, so
and
they're
I think
not
that's
relying on these guys anymore. Like the Petrarcas, it was Petrarcas, Olivers for years. They go. Max Gawn has a good performance, very good. It's a Max Gawn game. He's always going to be influential, but he's not having the big game that he needed to have for Melbourne to win over the last few years. They've breeded like Harry. Who is it? Harry Sharp. He's kicked a goal a game so far this year. Where was that from? I didn't expect that. Harrison Petty moves up forward. He couldn't kick a goal for 3 years. He goes up, kicks 3 goals.
Maybe the Crows were right to see the $1.2 million man that he was.
I still think they're happy they didn't get that.
I think, yeah.
Tom Sparrow has 27 touches. Maybe it's a contract year for him. Other clubs are circling. He's like, well, boys, let's try and cash in on this.
He actually has played a very underrated season so far.
Yeah, I think he's had a very good season so far. But the Demons are bringing in these new players. Well, not even new players, but they're building something different now under Stephen King, and that's really good to see. And they're exciting. They kicked 120 points against a team. Yes, they were missing a couple of players. The Hawks, Barras wasn't there, but you kick 18 goals against any team in the competition, and making the MCG your fortress can't be any. That's the fortress you want to make.
Yeah, that's the way you want to be. Where you want to win.
How far do you think they can go this year?
I'm just a little hesitant to think that their young players are going to be able to play the whole season at the peak that they are. For where they are at the moment in the top 6, I think they still get... I think wild card is where they finish. I still think they'll finish in 9th or 10th.
Yeah, you think that?
I think that's where they'll finish. I don't think they... To be honest, I think looking at the ladder, I think the top 10... is set of where it is. I don't think you'll see much change in the top 10, sorry.
Yeah, we're looking at maybe the teams at the moment who we're like, I would look at them like, I don't know about them. You got St Kilda, the Dogs, you say Melbourne, but they've had a really good season so far. I think you're probably around right. Like the teams lingering outside, you got Collingwood, North Melbourne, GWS who look, all at sea. Port Adelaide who, honestly, looking at it right now, I think Port Adelaide are playing better than the Dogs. Even though the Dogs beat them a couple of weeks ago. I still think Port Adelaide are a chance. And St Kilda who, they're sitting in the top 9 right now. You wouldn't have expected them to. How they started this season, and honestly, I don't think they've done much improvement.
No.
But they're sitting in a decent spot right now.
Yeah.
I guess that's what the wild card does bring, doesn't it? Makes more interesting games. Then you talk about Hawthorn. Form has dropped off the cliff in the last 3 weeks. They were the premiership favourites 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Very early contenders. They draw against the Pies and they lose their last 2. I think they're very lucky they're going down to Tassie this week.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a game that you want to play the Crows at after their performance on the weekend. I think that, depending on who they bring in the Crows, because there's rumours that that Taylor Walker and Phil Thorpe could come back in. Mark Keane's close.
Yeah.
And Mitch Hinge is also close as well. So
Cal Archie's also a chance too.
yeah, so bringing those 3 or 4, maybe I doubt all 5 play, but into that team with no Barras and no Gunston, they've struggled the last month or so. Hawthorn, not really the team after what the Crows did on the weekend. Not really the team you want to play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But, I mean, I still think they'll be fine. I think the Hawks will bounce back a bit. I think they probably need the bye. They should get Will Day back.
Yeah, I think
their bye, probably.
They're saying he's going to play VFL for the next 2 weeks and maybe play the Bulldogs in, I think, round 13 or 14. Yeah, I think maybe you should wait till... I can't remember when their bye is. I think it's round 14.
Yeah, it was a quick look. So the Hawks would have their bye in round 14.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, if I was Sam Mitchell, I'd play him for the VFL for the next couple of weeks until after their bye.
Yeah.
And then from their bye, go.
Yeah.
And
let him have that second half of the year.
Yeah, have the last 8 or 9 home and away games into the season, and then go to hopefully get the finals all the way through. I think that's what you do.
Yeah. Then we get to the Blues against the Dogs. Blues get their second win of the season. Josh Fraser is the saviour. Dogs, very disappointing again. The injuries that they've got are just, getting to them right now. The defence is atrocious. And the Blues, the caretaker syndrome, getting your caretaker coach, you get a win. So I don't think I read much into the Blues, to be honest. Yes, they're going to win. Josh Fraser, it was honestly like a Blues sort of performance up to the first half. They look really good. Yes, they didn't have the lead, but they're looking dangerous. Third quarter, they kick 2 goals, 5. You're like, oh god, this is going to happen again. But in the last quarter, they found the big sticks. They won the game.
Yeah.
Carlton fans will be happy, obviously, but I don't think there's much really here.
No, I don't think it's about Carlton. It's about how the Dogs are at the moment and how much they rely on their big guy, and Tim English.
Yeah,
I think that's what they like. You got the other player, and maybe even Sam Darcy being out as well, because we all know that Norton's stats go down when Sam Darcy's out of the team. So
I mean, he was the highest scorer of the game. He kicked 3 goals, 3. But yeah, I mean, Bontempelli's probably overshadowed the fact that Tim English has been so important as one of the better ruckmen in the competition. Bontempelli's influence on games, and obviously the Bont is such a star that obviously it does overshadow other players. How important they are to this team. But Tim English out. I mean, you did tip it. You did tip the Blues.
Yeah, I thought I tipped it before the change of coach, but I felt like Tim English was more important to the Dogs than maybe even Bontempelli. Because it's shown that he is the games he hasn't actually played in, how much they've relied on Tim English, and I think they've actually lost every game that he's been out this season. Even though that he was out concussed in the Port game, he did play until he got concussed. So he's actually lost, I think, every game that he's been out on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Dogs are gonna. I mean, the funny thing is, if Luke Beveridge signed his contract, if they send him a contract at round 4 or 5. It would be very interesting to have seen now where they're at. But do you think he keeps his job? It's hard to read right now.
It's hard to say because the fact is that to be honest, I would say no. It's hard to say though because of the way they're playing and they've got no reinforcements. It shows how much of they rely on their top players.
Yeah, I mean they rely heavily on their star factor.
Yeah,
they're probably lucky that Bontempelli's been able to keep himself up most of the season. I mean, he's been having some injury issues. They've been saying as well, but he still had a very good year. After that, we moved to Sunday afternoon. Dockers up against Essendon. Not much to say other than, Essendon would just be looking at their ex right now, Patrick Voss, and thinking, why the fuck did we let him go? Patrick Voss with 5 goals. Absolutely massive performance from him.
Yeah, he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, didn't he?
For most of that game. He did, but I think that's fair enough.
No, he deserved to play well, and and it shows. And to be honest, it says 44 or 40-point win. Yeah, 43-point win. It was so much more. It felt like so much more than that. Yeah. The Bombers played absolutely terribly. I
mean, it was 10 goals at 3-quarter time. Essendon kicked 5 goals to 3 in the last quarter. So, that's probably where it reads. But Dockers, they win again. you know, I mean, I still think they're pretty underrated at the moment this season.
Yeah, and what the Swans and Dockers are 2 games clear.
Yeah,
of the next team.
Yeah, I think that I think we're talking. I mean, yes, Geelong have been good. Like, I agree, and I mean they've got a good. I think they'll probably go in favourite against Sydney this week. But I think we're talking a little bit about more about Geelong than Fremantle. And I think Fremantle are a team that, like, I guess it is the factor if they've never won one. It's kind of, you know,
there's more. It seems like there's more pressure on that because the fact is they haven't. Yeah. But
they've equaled their record for the best start to a season they've ever had.
And I said this probably last week or the week before. They should be undefeated, to be honest. Yeah. They should have beaten Geelong round 1. Yeah. So it's amazing to think that this team, you know, didn't have.
We've been waiting for years for this team to finally flourish.
Oh yeah, well, and yes, they played Essendon, but you know, Alex Pearce didn't play. Hayden Young hasn't played, and some other players, you know, they've still got the depth and they're still winning, and you know.
They've fit their draft very well.
Oh, yeah.
Again, Murphy Reid, I think we're saying his praises enough here, but probably one of the better players on the ground. 30 touches, 1 goal, 2. You know, usually has the most score involvements of every game that he plays. He had 7 on the weekend. He's just, you could have picked him up too, by the way. Joe Barry got picked a couple of picks prior.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Picked up Murphy Reid. St Kilda up against the Tigers. I mean, St Kilda. You know, we say, whatever, dismissive on St Kilda, but they win again. They've got 5 wins now from 10 games. They jump up. They've got 112 of percentage, which is pretty decent, you know, compared to a lot of other teams.
It's probably good that they beat the Eagles a couple of weeks ago by 100.
Yeah,
because they needed that percentage boost, and they've still got, I think, the last 12 or 13 games at in Melbourne. Sorry, so you know
they should be making.
They've set up their They might have started slow, everyone was giving pressure, but they've set their season up right to fire for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think Coning's worth the amount of money he's got, but anyway, hasn't shown that whatsoever. Finally, Eagles up against GWS. Eagles get a win. 3rd win of the season. When they want to play good footy, they show a lot.
They're exciting, aren't they?
They're an exciting team to watch.
Yeah.
But when they play like shit, fuck, they're bad. They've really got a huge, you know, there's really no middle ground with the West Coast Eagles. They can lose by 100 points, or they can show up against the GWS Giants and play probably their best 4-quarter performance in half a decade. So, I mean, I think you say yes, well done to the West Coast Eagles. They came in with a plan. They hit the right players. They sent Brady Hoff to Finn Callahan, kept him pretty well held. Milan Murdoch played against Lachie Whitfield. He kept him well held, even though he gave away that 100-metre penalty. Did you see that?
No.
100-metre penalty. Just abused an umpire or something. And then Lachie Whitfield got transferred down the field. But then did the game-saving tackle. Well, not the game-saving tackle.
Kicked the last goal. Yeah.
So they love Indigenous round as well.
Yeah.
They love that immensely. But GWS, they've had a lot of injuries. You know, they can't really get everyone on the field. They currently sit in a position 13th, which is, you know, only 1 win away from a wild card, which is going to keep the season alive for a lot of it, you know, for the rest of the campaign. So there will always be a chance, but 90% as well isn't ideal. They have one of the bottom 6 in terms of percentage in the competition. If they get their players back, I say they can be a chance of making a wild card spot. They do have a very good draw for the rest of the season, I'm pretty sure, like fixture. But if you drop games against like the West Coast Eagles, that's when you're going to be struggling. And, you know, at the start of the season, people like Kane Corns and that were saying that if the GWS tend to go through a rebuild, and I was pretty adamant saying I think they've got the right puzzle pieces there. But, you know, if they get players injured like they have, their depth gets tested pretty quickly. And there's a lot of players, I think, at the moment that are getting games that may well not deserve it.
Yeah, and, you know, they're relying, you know, a lot on of Toby Green and their core midfield. You know, and their forward line is relying a lot on, you know, an Aaron Cadman in his fourth year.
Well, the problem with him as well is he's had a pretty interrupted pre-season with injury, and now he's coming in. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to really hit his straps yet. Jake Stringer hasn't really done a lot this year. Toby Green's having to play as a midfielder, but then also up forward to try and kick goals. Stephen Canelio hasn't really done a lot this year. Jesse Hogan hasn't been able to get out frequently. We haven't even seen Sam Taylor at all this year. Brent Daniels has returned. He's had some pretty good games. Probably one of their better performers. Finn Callahan, he's having to carry the midfield with Tom Green being out for the whole season. Kieran Briggs just doesn't like this new ruck rule. I don't think.
No, and
he got smashed by Bailey Williams yesterday.
Yeah, no. And the fact is that like Nick Madden has been injured for the last couple of weeks, and that's brought Kieran Briggs in, and it's shown, and Bailey Williams has probably played his career best game. And this new ruck rule is really showing, the difference between the good ruckman and the bad ruckman now.
Yeah, the ones who can jump, the ones who can, that aren't the ones who are wrestling. They're the ruckman that you need. Because we literally saw, like with the Crows, they realised the rule changes aren't going to help to a ruckman like Riley O'Brien, and it's shown that you need the tap ruckman now who can jump.
Yeah,
some ruckmen have adjusted pretty well, like Brodie Grundy. I thought was going to probably struggle with the rule, but
and Tristan Xerri was probably one of the biggest ones.
At the start of the season, people were saying, "Oh God, this guy's not going to like it at all," and he's had pretty good games so far. Like I think last week against the Crows was one of his lower performances, other than the blood game. But yeah, do you think the Giants are really a team that can even do much this year? If they, I think maybe they could sneak in if they get a good run.
I want to see Sam Taylor. If he's one person that will set up that defense, and him and Iden will do well.
Yeah,
but
Buckley as well.
Yeah, with them three. But are they going to lose too many games before he gets back? Are they going to lose too many? Because I think it's going to be very interesting. But I'd probably just put a line through them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you put a line through them now.
Yeah.
But we didn't really talk about them a moment ago. But let's talk about the Tigers, because they are having one of the all-time worst runs of all time in injuries. Injury crisis at the Tigers. They prompted the AFL to allow the Tigers to pick from VFL-listed players in a 26-man squad for Friday's game. Adamuse has only 25 fit players to pick from, according to the AFL. Now, John Ralph did recently say, this was today, that the Tigers are confident they won't have to use VFL top-ups as emergencies, with Steely Green and Luke Traynor expected to be able to play despite scans for dislocated thumbs. So they're going to be potentially be playing with dislocated thumbs, bro. Can we just say, if Essendon don't win this game of football, they're not going to win another one.
No. If they lose this game, surely Brad Scott loses his job. Surely.
Well, they
can't go any lower than losing to Richmond. There's actually zero excuses to lose this game.
Yeah.
They have zero excuses to win. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, they have to win.
Yeah, they have no excuse.
No, I don't care. Like Sydney, they have a reason to lose. They have a reason to lose for a loss. Any other team in the competition can lose this week, besides Essendon.
Yeah, there's no way they can lose that game. Now, last week in the VFL, Richmond had to withhold Caleb Smith and Samson Ryan from playing in the VFL game against Box Hill because of a 5-day break, while McKelty Lafau was dealing with soreness. This is why he was out last week. Of course, they did have the injury of Campbell Gray, who pulled his hamstring on the weekend against the Saints, and isn't expected to be ready for the game after a 5-day break. I would doubt it highly. So Steely Green, they both dislocated their thumbs. Sam Cumming was also a bit of a concern because he got a corked quad, while Nick Vlosten also comes under MRO scrutiny with a tackle against Ryan Bruins.
I think he'll get a week for it.
I think the AFL may take a little bit of leniency.
Like you said, I would think that they might just say, no, there's no way. Give him a big fine. I'd rather they give him a big fine and just play him.
Yeah. Well, I just don't know what they do. Like, yes, they can dip through the VFL. By the way, I looked into their VFL performance against Box Hill. No AFL listed players, I don't think. They nearly beat Box Hill. I think they lost by 2 points in the end against them. No, 1 point. So good on the VFL team. They really took it up to the Box Hill Hawks, who don't really have the best team. I thought they're doing pretty well in the VFL, the Box Hill this year. Yeah, they're sitting in 6th spot. For the Tigers to have competed in that game is pretty good of them. So maybe they do have some VFL players that are like, hey, hang on a minute, this guy could be a player they could put in. But what do they do? I think the last time we sort of had this happen was back in COVID with the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah.
They brought in a couple of players to play for their team, and I think that Was it against Collingwood? It could have been against
It
Collingwood.
was against a Victorian team. I remember that, but yeah.
Yeah, they had to dip into their waffle like top up players because of COVID. It's going to be a very big watch if the Tigers get a couple more injuries. It does seem that this week they will avoid having to add too many players to their emergency list from the VFL.
The thing is, I think next week is the mid-season draft, and obviously you can get players from that. So they won't have to go through VFL listed VFL players, but they'll get some players from that. But yeah, so many injuries you don't normally see it, and yeah, it's very interesting to see because it's different injuries. It's not like it's all soft tissue or whatever, So
yeah, it's just a huge bad luck story, really.
Yeah,
the fact they've even got a win is crazy. Against the West Coast Eagles, like I said, if West Coast play well, they're an actual decent team. When they play poorly, they play bad.
Yeah.
So the Tigers now sit with one win. They have a game this week that, if it wasn't for all their injuries, it'd probably be a 50-50 game. If you take half their injuries away, the Tigers, you probably I'd give them a chance. I'd probably pick them. But they have so many injuries now. They potentially have to dip into their VFL just to field a team.
Yeah.
Do you give them any chance against Essendon?
Maybe a small chance. It's like they're probably their only prime time game. All the eyes are on them. Maybe. And all the pressure is on Essendon to win this game.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd say 5%, maybe 10%. Maybe
but
5%.
Like you said, if Essendon lose, they're the only team in this round that can't afford to lose.
Yeah,
this is a game that you don't lose.
Yeah, no, yeah. Brad Scott his coaching career is on the line for this one.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. I can't see why it wouldn't be. You can't lose this game of footy. Which brings us to our fan favourite segment of Rate It or Hate It. Now, of course, this is, I've said it many times, but it's gone up the chain. It's gone, it's starting to trickle down a bit, this segment. It's gone down to Laura Kane. She sent me a message. She was like, boys, loving the segment. Okay? Make sure to not badmouth me. But other than that, go helter skelter. She absolutely loves it. So we've got Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane on our side. Would like to see the umpiring improve a bit, but, as long as they're fans, I'll keep my mouth shut. Anyway, on to the first question for Rate It or Hate It. We are starting with the Tigers. Richmond will not win another game for the rest of the season. Yeah,
rate it. I think they've got too many injuries. I just think that once some of them come back, if they do, it's just they just haven't had enough time together as a team. They're not going to win another game.
You really think that there's no way they can win? They're not going to win.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that...
do they play Port again? Let's have a quick... I think they do play Port again.
Well, it is at Adelaide Oval because I remember we played at the MCG. Yeah,
which I think I actually tipped Richmond.
I tipped Richmond that day because we were playing so poorly. We played against West Coast. I think we lost the week before. We lost to West Coast the week before.
I actually don't think they do play Port Adelaide again.
Yeah, we do. Oh,
you sure? I don't think they do.
Maybe we do. Oh no, it's the other low ranked teams we play again.
Yeah, so they got lucky. They got lucky. You got lucky there. You can say what you want because they can't beat them this year.
That was another easy win.
Anyway, let's move to the second one. This is on Collingwood. Collingwood prioritised Pendlebury over their season.
Yes, I rate it because that's what they did, but I understand why they did it. I think why they did it is I understand why they did it, but it's probably fucked this season.
The last two, the games we're obviously referring to are the Hawthorn draw and the game against the Swans. Pendlebury plays, they win.
Yeah, I think I understand why they did it, and I would have done the same. I think he deserves to play his game-breaking game at home at the MCG in front of 90,000. I think he deserves that, but they did prioritize. They did
prioritize.
Yes, Pendlebury's record.
Yeah, I agree. Now, my question would be, and I think this is something that Kane Corns would be. This is the main point he's bringing up. Should they have let Pendlebury play 98% of that last quarter of Anzac Day, so he had to be rested the next week?
Probably not.
I think that's where where I would have the issue. And now, in hindsight, obviously hindsight to 2020, you can see now, and you're like, oh well, back then we were all like, that's amazing that he was able to do that. Shut up, Kane. But you sit here now, 4 weeks down the track, they've dropped 2 games because they rested Pendlebury.
Yeah.
it's 6 points that if they get 6 points back on track from those games, they move into 7th spot, maybe 8th, probably 9th actually, but they're a lot closer to a wild card spot than they are now.
Yeah, and the thing is also like people don't have forgotten the prelim last year. He did his he did the injury in the pre-game and then played 5 minutes and then he was out. If he doesn't play that game, then that's an extra game on this season that he had to play to break the record. So yes, he played Anzac Day a bit more, but the record could be broken in 2 weeks now, like 2 weeks from today or a week on from next week. So
we're going all the way back to the set.
There's reasons to why.
I totally agree. He has to play this game at the MCG.
Oh yeah,
no matter if it's
in
West Coast
a home game. It had to be a home game there. So they were saying it's like, we could have done it against Geelong at Geelong's home game, but it has. I think whatever you say, it's only fair that Pendlebury gets to do it in front of his own home crowd.
Which is probably what I would have said. They needed to have got it done by Hawthorn.
Yeah.
So that was the game. So they had the Anzac Day. So I guess unfortunately they probably couldn't have done it by Hawthorn because of that. But they had to rest him twice just to get him to the game now.
Yeah, because he had that slight injury earlier in the season that made him miss the game. Yeah. So I think, to be honest, they could have done it earlier in the year and then realised, to what they did. But because
the only other way they could have done it is wait till round 13 and then done it on Queen's birthday.
I don't know.
They could, and then you say they've waited way too long, and their season would have been gone by then. So they have to do it now, which it had to be at the MCG, but unfortunately, it may well have cost their season. They needed to be a team that finishes in the top 6.
Yeah.
I honestly think, but when it comes to finals, a low scoring encounter, if you can grind out a game, maybe they can win through. I don't think they're a contender though. That's where I kind of lie with it. Did anyone really think that Collingwood were going to be a contender this year?
No.
I didn't think that.
If they were a contender, maybe you can be a bit more harsher on this. Yeah. And be like, well, you guys were
why are you prioritising Pendlebury's game over a premiership?
Yeah, you're touted to be a top 4 team. Don't prioritise a player over the team, but they're not. The way they've played so far this season, they've struggled to get 100 points. Yeah. We've
seen how the game's evolved. You need to get 100 points. You need to be averaging that 90-point game to, you need to be getting hundreds a lot of weeks to be like a team that can contend.
Yeah.
And they just simply can't. And they don't have the forward line to do it.
No.
So I kind of lean towards that. No one really seen them as like a premiership contender, and how the season's got to with round, even before Anzac Day, where they say that like you didn't have to be rested for that point. I honestly think they weren't a contender, but that's where I kind of sit anyway. Final question for Rate It or Hate It: is North Melbourne finishing between 11th to 14th a pass mark for the season?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah,
So
I rate it because they've been in the bottom 4 for basically the last 10 years. So, yes, you probably say it is a pass mark. But when you have such a poor performance in a game that in a season you're going up, you can't concede 10 goals in a quarter. Not many
times you see a team that's going to contend for the top teams of the competition. They don't concede 10 goals very often.
No, and and this team has been now known for conceding 5 goals repeatedly.
Yeah, consistent basis. They will concede bags of goals.
So they still don't know how to stop that from happening, as it just proved last week. So. But yes, a pass mark has to be 11 through 14.
If they finish in the bottom 4, I say it's another failed year. And
yes,
it's not a successful year if they finish 14th or 13th or even 11th. Really, it's not really that successful. But at least there's some improvement.
It proves that they are actually going up.
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, you can say, these players are getting games into them. Look at the averages of these players going up. But at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. If they're not going up the ladder and getting more wins, they're not really improving, are they?
Yeah.
So I kind of lean towards that. And the teams that they've beaten this year is also very interesting. They have only beaten teams that are in the bottom 5 of the ladder. They beat Port Adelaide, they beat Carlton, they beat the Bombers, and they beat the Tigers. The team they lost to as well was the Eagles. They have not beaten anyone else. So this week against the Gold Coast, I honestly think it's a danger game for the Suns. If North Melbourne can bounce back and win that game of football, I'll take it back. I'll say there's signs of improvement. Right now, I honestly don't. There are improvements. You can point out these little things like a player's got better, or blah blah blah. But the results aren't really improving, and they're not going to finish if they finish 15th in front of, or let's say honestly, actually looking at it now, if they finish 14th, I still don't know if that's really that improving, because the teams below them are West Coast, Carlton, Essendon, and the Tigers, who I believe North Melbourne should be in front of.
Yeah.
So, maybe 14th isn't a pass for me, but anything, if they can finish 13th or 12th, I'd say, okay, they've done a bit better. There's some improvement, and the wins on the board. I think they got 6 wins. They didn't get that many wins last year either. They finished with 5.5 wins. So if they can get to 7 or 8 wins, I'd say it's a little bit better, and they finish outside the bottom 4. There's some improvement there. It's actually seen. You can actually see the results. You can point to that. You can't just point to Harry Sheezel's done a lot better. He's near the All-Australian squad. It's like, Harry Sheezel's a star. We already know that. But we want to. I think North Melbourne fans would rather see a win than Harry Sheezel get an All-Australian place.
Yeah.
That's what I would think anyway. That's all for Rate It or Hate It, guys. Hopefully Laura Kane can send us another good message somewhere, Instagram post. You can get me somewhere, Laura. I understand. I think the email is somewhere on the channel. Get in contact. We'll let you know. But for now, guys, let's get to the preview to the new round. Of course, round 11 is coming up. Big matchups to see. A couple of top 4 matchups as well coming up over the weekend. So let's get straight into it.
We've got some really big matchups coming up this week. A couple of top 4 clashes. We could even see some very early previews of finals coming up. So, of course, we start with the Thursday night contest between the Hawks and the Crows. Now, Hawthorn have been in some pretty poor form over the last month or so, especially in the last 3 weeks, with no wins in their last 3 matchups, with 1 draw and 2 losses. While the Crows have returned to a bit of form after a slow start to the campaign with 3 wins in a row, and coming off their best game of the season against the Roos last week after a brilliant second quarter where they kicked 10 goals to zip and pretty much finished that game off from there. 2 big factors in this game. First of all is the fact that both of these teams are coming off a 5-day break, which will be very interesting, but still even playing field. But probably the biggest factor is that this game is being played down in Tassie at UTAS Stadium, which is a fortress for the Hawks. Hawthorn have won their last 11 games down at the venue. However, the last time it did lose a game down there was against the Crows back in 2023. So these sorts of records, I guess, are meant to be broken, but Hawthorn have a great record down there. Now, on the team's point of view, Hawthorn should see the return of Gunston this week after being out in the last one, and probably the biggest of note could be the return of Will Day after a long injury layoff. He was listed as a possible return in this game. However, with a cold winter's night on the horizon down in Tasmania, I think that they may leave him on ice for 1 more game, potentially in the VFL, although I think they'll just give him 1 more week off and then bring him back the week after. While on the Adelaide Crows point of view, Thilthorpe was left out last week, so he could make a return this week, although similar reasoning for Will Day potentially being out. Down in Tasmania, cold night, having a sore back, I think they'll leave him out for another week. I think those sort of conditions anyway aren't really thriving for a key forward, so I think they'll leave out Riley Thilthorpe this week as well. Now, the Crows could also see the return of Cal Archie and Mitch Hinge, as Archie did return through the sandfall last week, and Hinge has been out with a bit of a hamstring, so a couple of returns there. Now, on the recent record between these 2 respective sides, Hawthorn have won 4 of their last 5 against Adelaide, which includes the game down in Tasmania last year and the semi-final at Adelaide Oval in last year's final series when the Crows got knocked out in straight sets. But for now, let's get to my tip for this game, and I just have to go Hawthorn. They've been in bad form over the last 3 weeks in my eyes, and I think there are a lot of glaring concerns with them. So if this game was played anywhere else, Adelaide Oval or even the MCG, I'd probably be going with the Adelaide Crows, but down at the fortress that is UTAS Stadium for Hawthorn, the conditions they know so well, I think they just get this one done in a very close one. Up next, we move to North Melbourne via the Gold Coast Suns on Saturday. North Melbourne coming off an absolute smashing against the Crows, while the Gold Coast are returning from Darwin after 2 big wins. Now, North Melbourne have lost their last 4 games. If it was 2 weeks ago, ago, the Swans game that they lost, they actually played really well. But last week's performance was very below par for mine. So they are not in the best of form, the Roos. While Gold Coast have won their last 3 encounters, but 2 of those games being in Darwin, in the fortress that they've built up there, does make their record look a little bit better than probably what it actually is. On the injury point of view, there's a big watch on LDU this week after injuring his knee in the dying stages of the game against Adelaide last week. So that's a big watch. Now, Tom Powell could be his replacement after recovering from a groin complaint that he has been suffering over the last fortnight or so. While the Gold Coast could be making a few changes, both Weller and Graham will likely be out through injury, while Jamara was a late withdrawal in the game against the Power last week, so he could make his return, although in saying that, the Gold Coast forward line performed quite well last week without him, with Ned Moyle playing as that second ruck, kicking 3 goals and helping out in the ruck duties with Jared Witts, who did come in as that late in, so they may well leave him out this week. Now, other inclusions for the Gold Coast could be Sam Closey after his suspension and Ben Long after a little bit of an injury concern. He was left out last week, so a couple of interesting changes that could be made there for the Suns. Now, on the recent record between these two sides, it does read a win each way, alternating. So the last time these two teams met, the Gold Coast actually won by a whopping 52 points. That was in Gather Round last week. That was in Gather Round last year. So a long time between drinks between these two sides. But now let's get to my tip. And I think this game will be a little bit closer than most people are expecting. And in fact, I'm actually going to be picking a bit of roughy here. I'm going to be picking North Melbourne. Now, I know last week I shouldn't have really any faith in the Kangaroos. However, I'm picking them on 2 reasons. For one, I think the fact that the Suns are returning from 2 tough, grueling, hot games in Darwin, I think coming back to Melbourne and acclimatizing to those conditions isn't exactly ideal. So I think that will go against them. And secondly, Dimmer absolutely hates Marvel Stadium. So I believe that Clarkson's going to send a rocket up a lot of the North Melbourne players' asses this week after a terrible performance. I think they'll get raked through the coals in the media, and I think that the Kangaroos will get it done in response this week. Next up, we get to probably the game of the round for mine. It is the Cats up against Sydney, the battle of the handball game. The Cats have really generated that handball game for the last couple of months or so, while the Swans have really done that since the last month of last year. The Swans really brought the emergence of the handball game, so it's going to be a very interesting watch. Now, despite both these teams winning their last 2 games, I think it's a little bit interesting to see that the Swans haven't played that well over the last fortnight, while I think, honestly, the Geelong have been the far superior side. Now, the Swans have found a different way to win over the last few weeks, which has been interesting to see. Obviously, a lot of people are expecting that the Swans, the only way they can win is getting it through the corridor, but especially last week against the Pies, they locked that off in the first quarter, and the Pies look really good. But the Swans were able to change their plans, play it on the outside, switch the ball as much as they can, still use the handball as they could, but were able to use it on the outside of the ground and then bring it back into the corridor, or more the centralised part of the forward 50 as the game went forward, and then were able to just steal it in the end. So that will be a very interesting watch between how these two sides use this sort of handball game down in GMHBA Stadium where this game will be played. But let's move to the team point of view, and on Geelong first of all. Now, Tom Stewart was listed as a corky to his calf post-game, but I honestly think he'll be fine. I don't think there's too many concerns there. Now, a couple of inclusions could be for the Cats, Kolodjasny and Warple, who were managed last week, so there could be a couple of changes there, but there will have to be a couple of players who played pretty well last week for the Cats up against Brisbane, so may well just go in unchanged in my eyes. While the Swans, I think, will probably go in unchanged. Maybe Peter Laddams, who's played really good in the reserves, could make a return for his first game of the year to give Grundy a little bit of help in the ruck, but Brodie Grundy's performance last week was, amazing, so I don't really think the Swans will make a change there. Now, in the recent record between these two sides, the Cats have won 3 of their last 5 against the Swans, and the Swans have only won 1 with 1 draw within those 5 games, but this also includes a 93-point win to the Cats, along with the humiliation in the 2022 Grand Final. So the Cats have the wood over the Swans in recent memory. But for now, let's get to my tip. And this is honestly a really tough game to pick. And even though it is down at the Cattery, where the Swans haven't had the best record down in recent memory, before the last 5 games between the Cats and the Swans have actually had a pretty decent record down in GMHBA Stadium. So they don't have too many concerns down there, but a lot of their players probably haven't won a game down in Geelong in such a long time. But I'm going to be picking Sydney here. I may be a little bit out of left field, but I love how the Swans are going right now, and I just can't pick against them. It's going to be a massive game down there, probably one of the biggest games we've seen down in GMHBA for the last couple of years. Maybe a little bit of bias on my point of view, but I'm backing my Swans. But the final matchup we're going to be taking a deep dive into, of course, is the Dogs up against Melbourne, the last game of round 11. Now, the Dogs are coming off a loss against the Blues, and their form has really dropped off the cliff in the last month or so. Obviously, injuries have been a factor, but there's been other issues with the Dogs as well. While basically a complete contrast from that is Melbourne's performances in the last month or so, and they took another scalp last week against the Hawks at the MCG, which they have made Adelaide, an absolute fortress, by the way. This game, of course, being at Marvel, does even the playing field a little bit between these two sides. Now, the Dogs will at least make one force change going into this week, with Bailey Williams going down with a hammy against the Blues last week. But we should also see the return of Tim English for the Dogs, which is massive for them, while James O'Donnell could also make a return. Now, on the D's point of view, Caleb Winter should be the only change for them this week. But between these two sides in the last 4 games, the Dogs have won the last 2 games, but before that, Melbourne won the previous 2. So, bit of an even record between these two sides. But for now, let's get to my tip for this one, and I simply just have to pick the Demons. They have been one of the most impressive teams so far this year. A real surprise packet for mine, and the Dogs, even though they were probably the best team in the competition in the first month of the campaign, they have just dropped off the face of the earth. So for mine, have to pick Melbourne here. But for now, guys, of course, let's get to our full tips for round 11. Now, my tips are Hawthorn to beat Adelaide, Essendon to beat Richmond, Fremantle to beat St Kilda, North Melbourne to beat the Gold Coast, Sydney to beat the Geelong, Collingwood to beat West Coast, Port Adelaide to beat Carlton, Brisbane to beat GWS, and Melbourne to beat the Western Bulldogs. Now, my certainty tip this week is Hawthorn to beat the Crows. Of course, Hawthorn losing to Melbourne last week. And my brother's full tips for round 11 are Hawthorn to beat the Crows, Essendon to beat Richmond, Fremantle to beat St Kilda, the Gold Coast to beat North Melbourne, Sydney to beat Geelong, Collingwood to beat West Coast, Port Adelaide to beat Carlton, Brisbane to beat GWS, and Melbourne to beat the Dogs. Now, my brother's certainty tip for this week is Collingwood to beat West Coast. Of course, the Pies losing to Sydney last week. But now, guys, of course, we get to our AFL fantasy segment for this episode of the podcast, and I will start, but boy, am I pissed. So, had a terrible week. I got 2002. That is it. That's not the year we're in. That's the score I got. Very disappointing. Ranked at 37,214 for the round. Overall rank has dropped to 18,068. Now, a couple of positives from the weekend. Roberts did okay with the 100 and Ash with the 100 as well. Nick Dacos, after a positive start, dropped off the face of the earth because they moved in forward. Zach Butters probably my best performer of the weekend. Sam Flanders did well with the 109, which I was happy with. Isaac Rankin I did like with his performance against North Melbourne. Brought him in this week, so I was happy with that. And a couple of rookies did pretty well. Willem Dersma with the 70, I will take that. Josh Lindsay has really shown a lot in the last month or so, which was good. Bailey Dale was nice too. But let's talk about the negatives, because that's where I'm really, really frustrated me over the weekend. So, Josh Dacos with the 80. Just not good enough. I don't know what he's done. Like, his brother has a poor... Like, he can't get the ball forward because Sam Wicks just has him on lock. I don't know. I mean, I know that Sam Wicks just had your number, Nick, but didn't kick a goal after quarter time. But maybe you can just, grow a pair, Josh. Do some work. Fuck me. Harry Sheasel is, captain against the Crows. He was one of their highest scorers, but one of his lowest scores of the year. I think he got 93, it looks like, here in the end, 186. Very disappointing. Sam Walsh, under your new coach, got 76. Like, how about you do a little bit better? Murdoch playing as a tagger. I don't really like that, but 63. Luke Jackson, very disappointing performance. I mean, he got blanketed by their Bombers. They always do it, but 70 wasn't ideal. Cosy Pickett with a 73. Honestly, got lucky to get to that point. I think he was in the 30s for a lot of the third quarter, so he did have a better second half. Jason Horne-Francis. I don't know. I'm sorry to the Port Adelaide fans out there, but I picked him up 3 weeks ago, and he just... All right, so now Josh Carr's, all right, chuck you forward. Sorry. He was like your best midfielder for, like, other than Zach Butters for, like, a good month or so, and they're like, all right, chuck you forward. That's enough. Yeah, so that was disappointing, and a couple of reserves like Blamires with the 49, he's time for him to go. Blackiston with 11, he's moved to a key back now, so unfortunately he's not getting those hit-outs very often. Patrick Cross, I think it's Patrick Cross, from my understanding, Paddy Cross, I think it's Patrick. He got 38. His price is going to go up, but not much more. Sam Cumming, I told you last week, I hate Cumming now. I actually put that was going to be the title of the AFL Fantasy Preview, recap, and it got fucking age restricted. It got age restricted. Like, fucking... Do you really think I'm actually going to write that in the fucking name? Cumming. Oh, yeah, that's the whole video. How do your fucking AI prompters actually watch a little bit of the video and realise what I'm talking about? But anyway. Yeah, very poor week. Very disappointed. And probably the worst week of the year. How about you?
Oh, well, I did actually a hell of a lot better than that. So last week, I got 2,143, which was ranked 7,700. And... overall, I'm 13,400. So I had a pretty good week.
We're all happy for you.
So we had Jack Sinclair get back on the ton list with 115. Jaden Short coming back with 88, I thought was nice. And then Bailey Dale with the 95. Tanner Bruin coming back with some form after his horrible game last week. Got 91. Jagger Smith again, rookie. 91 still on my field.
Got rid of
Take
him,
that.
All of a sudden, he's actually. I thought he'd been.
Yeah. McInerney 110. Sam Flanders 109. Shea Bolton came back again with 93. And I have to mention one more player, which I was shitty that I didn't put him as captain.
Well, he burned you last.
He burned me last week because he against North Melbourne, and then this week he absolutely scores 161, and finding out Oscar Steen gets injured, I'm like, yep, he's gonna ton like fuck up, and I'm like, fuck. So I'm bad.
Anyone who vice captained him this week as well, by the way, absolutely. I think you got a bit of you're a bit ballsy after going with the 54.
Yeah, and I know some people who had him and Bailey Smith after the first 2 games of the week. Oh my god, and they would have been absolutely happy as fucking shit. Let's go to the low lights. Dan Houston 69. What the fuck are you doing?
Well, Josh Dacos did better than him.
Yeah, so
no wonder he got tackled by Rowie in the end.
Yeah.
Bottom in game 150 shut him down, shut his score down.
Colby McKercher, I know you don't have a right foot, but seriously, against the, just
71.
Yeah, 71. Sam Walsh, you mentioned, Cosy Pickett, Jack Steele. This is why I always say never pick him up, and I picked him up because he was doing well. Fucking loser. Brandon Cook, 73 on my field. I will take it, but it's a little annoying. But the one player I do want to mention, which you did mention with a good score, I had Archie Roberts as my captain, which was, I wish I took Butters. I thought he would have dominated against Freo, but
to be fair, he did score the highest out of the whole game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I looked at wow, it really wasn't a high-scoring game.
No.
Just some rookies players. Oscar Steen I did bring in this week, which is annoying. Of course, he gets injured.
Yeah. He was actually having a good game before that point too, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Max Heath I've got as an emergency. But most of my other rookies actually scored well, which you didn't, besides the ones you mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's time now, though, you got to start moving them on, though. So let's move to our trades. So for this week, I've got rid of Blamires. His price has gone full now. And I've picked up, at the moment, the GWS's young Harrison Oliver. Played his first game last week, had a pretty decent performance, so I picked him up. And I know I've said this a couple of times now, but I've wanted to try and get rid of rookies before my premium players, or, established players, but Jason Horne-Francis, he's burned me. I'm getting rid of him.
You're doing what you did a couple last week with getting rid of Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm doing it again. I can't take that. So the reason why is I'd probably look at either getting rid of McAndrew or Cook. And right now, they're both averaging the last 3 weeks better than Horne-Francis. So I'm getting rid of him. And because I have Harry Sheasel in the midfield, I'm able to swap him to the forward line and bring in Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah.
Now, I did have enough money that I could have gone to Bailey Smith, which I was like, it was tempting. I was like, Bailey Smith, he's only scored a couple of games under 100 this year, and he's, he can 150 up.
Oh, yeah. He did it on the weekend.
Exactly. But I was like, Bontempelli's not going to be at this lower price for very much longer. So I'm bringing him in. I've got 298k left in the salary, which means that next week I can start moving these rookies, because Caleb Sarong's been annoying me, but he got 100 last week, so that's okay. Sam Walsh annoys me this week, but I think I can hold him for a little bit longer. So there's not really anyone in my team right now that I have that's like that established player, other than maybe Josh Dacos, where I'm like, I can get rid of them.
Well, do you have a lot of people on the buy next week?
What do you mean, like to buy?
Round 12.
Well, that's when the buys start happening. So my first thought is, I'll get rid of Lockie McAndrew because the Crows have an early buy, and then pick up Brodie Grundy because the Swans have a later buy.
Yeah.
That's where I'm kind of leaning to early, because I think the South Australian teams get the buys pretty early on. I think
both Port and the Crows have the buy next week.
Yeah. So I'm leaning towards getting rid of a couple of those now. That's kind of why I also lean towards Jason Horne-Francis getting rid of this week, because he's going to continue to drop in price, while Braden Cook is continuing to go up, which is good to see. He went up another 24k this week. So I'm looking at trying to get rid of those players first, but I was like, I have to get rid of him. Jason Horne-Francis is burning me too much here. Like, I could have picked up McInerney at that point as well, and I'm like, no, I'll go with Horne-Francis because he's getting midfield time. But McInerney's done pretty well. Like, he's had a couple of games where he's dropped to 70. But Jason Horne-Francis didn't even hit in 70s. He's hitting 60s. So that's what's burned me, and that's why I got rid of him. But hopefully in the next few weeks, McAndrew probably goes. He's done really well. I'm happy with how McAndrew's done, but he's gone. He's priced out now. And then probably you're looking at the Murdochs and the Dersmas in the middle, and then Lindsay and Cook are probably my last two that I'm looking to get rid of now. Because Lindsay, honestly, is sitting there in a pretty good spot right now. He continues to go up. In his last 3 weeks, he's averaged 76. So I'm happy with that.
I've still got him, and I've still got him on my bench, so I have the luxury of that one.
So let's move to your trades. What are you doing this week?
So I changed my trade last week to get, and I kept Sarong. But this week I'm going to get rid of Joe Sarong, and I'm going to get Brandon Ryan from Hawthorn. That probably will change depending on teams and stuff.
Yeah, but I've been looking at him as well. But I think, that'd be interesting. I mean, maybe with Tom Barras out,
I got him in because he actually scored 63, and his break even's like minus something, or I think it's like 8 or something. So I'll take that. I think Brandon Cook is probably priced out now. He might get an extra 20k or whatever, but I think it's best to get rid of him, especially with his bye next week. And I did the same thing with you when I got Bontempelli. I could have, as you did, I could have got Bailey Smith, but I was like, Bontempelli and has a later bye as well, and you're not going to get him at a better price. And I've still got about 213k left, so I think that's fair. I think he'll ride me through the buys, and at the moment, I've got some players that I'm actually looking pretty good next week with the buys now. And there's not a lot of other players I really want to get rid of besides rookies, and probably just Colby and McKercher, which I can probably get rid of by next week anyway, with these buys as well next week.
Yeah, so the buys are probably the next thing you really need to be looking at, guys, for your trades. Of course, you do get the 3 trades moving into the buy ranks, which is good. You get a lot more flexibility. They always sneak up on you. But
I remember I was like planning my trades for next week. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've got 3 this next week. I was like, I was kind of like, I don't really need 3.
Yeah, I mean, at least then you can start moving some players around now. But guys, that's pretty much all for AFL Fantasy for this week. And of course, with that is the end of the episode. So really appreciate you guys listening and watching the podcast this week. If you did enjoy it, of course, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And as this is releasing on Tuesday morning, the video essay on the main channel will be releasing this afternoon as well. The Wayne Carey, I love the title because it's a real YouTube clickbait at the moment, the files, like the Epstein files. I've got the Wayne Carey files. I love that. Anyway, so make sure to check that out when it comes out. It comes out 3 p.m. Melbourne time, 3:30 Melbourne time. Is it half an hour in front of us? Or
yes.
So it's 3 o'clock Melbourne time, 2:30 Adelaide time. Just look it up yourselves. It will come up. Turn on the notification bell to get notified on the YouTube video. Fuck that. I should have plugged that. That was stupid of me. I'm really bad at YouTube, guys. Anyway, if you do enjoy it, of course, make sure to let me know. Make sure to like, subscribe the podcast. Make sure to follow on Spotify as well, and all those kind of things. Laura Kane will let us know what we're supposed to do next week. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch us all next week.
See you later, guys.